Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We are looking at Imam Razi's discussion on the nature of guidance. And in the last session, we looked at his discussion on the relationship between reason and guidance. And one of the distinction we made in that session was between the necessity of reason and sufficiency of reason. So what Imam Razi is saying is reason is sufficient to reach to the truth, but it's necessary for grasping the truth it's necessary to our search for the truth to get to the truth, but it's not self-sufficient, it's not sufficient. So we assert one thing about we assert one thing about reason but deny the other thing. Okay, so as far as reason is concerned, that's in Arabic al-aql, and by reason we mean the faculty in us through which we understand ourselves and the world around us. So we are using reason here in a fairly broad sense. And in this regard, what we are claiming is that reason is necessary for understanding and arriving at the ultimate truth or truth in general. But it's not sufficient. So when people say that we deny reason, they are correct to an extent, but they are wrong in other aspect, or they're wrong in other aspects. So they are correct if they say that we deny the self-sufficiency of reasons as far as the attainment of or the grasp of the ultimate truth is concerned. But they are wrong to the extent that we believe that reason is necessary. necessary for understanding as well as arriving at the ultimate truth. So it's important to understand the difference between the necessity of reason and sufficiency of reason. So what is the difference? One way to understand the difference between reason as a necessity, necessary for understanding truth, and reason as not self-sufficient and for understanding truth, is to understand the difference between necessary conditions and sufficient conditions. So a necessary condition for anything is the condition that must be present for an event to occur or the state of affairs to realize. So for example, we can say the cloud is the presence of a cloud in normal condition, obviously. So we always, whenever we talk about these examples, we always say other things being equal, cloud is a necessary condition for rain, presence of cloud. Because you can't have rain if the cloud is absent. So one of the way to determine that some condition is a necessary condition or not is to see if the conditioned or the thing or the event or state of affairs of which that thing is claimed to be a condition, if that state of affair is present and the supposed a condition is absent, then that can't be a necessary condition. So cloud is an example of a necessary condition. So if we now look at reason, so we say reason is a necessary condition for understanding anything. What it means is you can't have understanding without the presence of the function of and the operation of reason. So in other words, it can't be that understanding is present and reason is not present. In alamul asbab, obviously, in our world. And that's why it's preposterous to say that Islam doesn't recognize reasons, because without reason, all Islamic obligations, what we call the caliph, are dependent on there being a person being able to use their reason, their faculty of reason. And even on the Day of Judgment, responsibility is adjudicated according to the level of understanding people have. And in this world, all Islamic obligations are related to the presence of reason. So if someone loses their reason, they've gone mad, or they're mentally ill, then those obligations don't apply to them anymore. They are not responsible adults. So the normal Islamic rulings don't apply to them. They are not held responsible as such. So, and reason is the absolutely necessary condition of all Islamic obligation in this world. So that's why it's haram. It's prohibited or to ignore the chain of cause and effect. It's actually a sin in Islam. People think it's actually a sin to ignore the chain of cause and effect. So in this sense, reason is absolutely necessary. So reason in that sense is absolutely necessary for understanding the truth, and to getting to reach the truth about any matters, especially the ultimate truth. But that doesn't mean that reason is self-sufficient as far as understanding is concerned, or as far as the ultimate truth is concerned. So what is the self-sufficiency, and how self-sufficiency is to be differentiated from the necessity? Now, if something A is the sufficient condition of something B, then we say that the A is all we need to produce or to attain B. So sufficient condition is the condition that will produce an event or a set of condition, a set of states of affairs of which it is a condition. So A is a necessary condition for B if B cannot occur without A. And the test to know whether B is a necessary condition or not, you just need to see whenever B is present, whether A is present or not. And if B is present and A is not present, then you can be sure that B is not the necessary condition of A. So for example, presence of cloud is one of the necessary conditions of rain. So you won't see an occurrence where rain is present but cloud is not present. That's one of the tests. But obviously cloud is not the sufficient condition of being real. You need all other necessary conditions generally to combine with this necessary condition to provide the sufficient conditions for the occurrence of something. So in that sense, A is a sufficient condition of B if A is all that you need. For B to and what is important here is all. And generally in sufficient condition is the combination of all the necessary conditions. And the third thing is something can be and the test for to know that A is a sufficient condition is for B is to see if A is present and B is absent. If that's the case, if we can spot one example of that, then obviously A is not a sufficient condition for the occurrence of B. Because if A is the sufficient condition for B, then whenever A is present, B will always be present. So and some conditions can be both necessary and sufficient. So in that case, that's the only way B will happen. So in that sense, so for example, oxygen is a necessary condition for combustion, for example. So oxygen is a necessary condition for B, but it's not a sufficient condition because we have witnessed the presence of oxygen without combustion, but we haven't seen combustion without the presence of oxygen. So that's why oxygen is a necessary condition but not sufficient condition. You need all other conditions to, for example, an appropriate temperature for this necessary condition to become sufficient condition. Similarly, water and oxygen are necessary condition for life, but they are not sufficient conditions. So they are indications of life, but it's not sufficient. You need other conditions. Generally, in the case of sufficient conditions, so oxygen and combustion oxygen is a necessary condition for combustion, but it's not a sufficient condition. But for almost any substance, a range of temperature combined with oxygen would be the sufficient condition for combustion. Okay, so in that sense, now when we look at understanding, reason, a necessary condition for truth, for understanding. In alamul asbab, in this world, in our normal circumstances, and that's what Sharia is for, normal circumstances are alamul asbab. You can't have truth and understanding without the presence of reason. And that shows that reason is a necessary condition for truth and understanding. But on the other hand, it's not a sufficient condition because reason can be present. There are a lot of very smart people, but they might not truth and understanding. So what Imam Al-Razi is saying is, this shows that you need Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's assistance. That's one of his argument. It's combined with other arguments which we looked at the last time. So for example, you have Einstein or Newton, but they might not reach the reality of God, understand the reality of the metaphysical truth, even though they are at the highest station of reason, because reason is not necessary but not sufficient condition. You need God's assistance, guidance, which comes through revelation and the message. And that's the argument for the necessity of revelation and the necessity of the prophethood as well. And that's that obviously cannot happen without the assistance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I think we spent a bit of time on that, but it's fine. I was hoping to finish this paragraph, but I will just read it and finish it next time, inshallah. So Imam Razi radiallahu ta'ala anhu wa rahmatullah alayh says that al-uqulu muttariba wal-haqqu sa'b. Human reason is discontent, unsatisfied. Wal-haqq, and the ultimate truth, is difficult. Wal-afkaru mukhtalita, and the opinions of people about the ultimate truth are all mixed up. People have all sorts of ideas about what is the right path, what is the right path to the truth, to the ultimate truth. So inshallah we'll start from this in the next section, and next session, and finish it in the next session, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.